headset, so...
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for being here. I'm going to assume you can hear me. If you can't, you can hear me. Fantastic. My name is Tal Nathan. I look after the applications, data, and AI business for NTT DATA in Australia and New Zealand. And yes, I am going to talk to you about salads. But before I do that, I want to go down a trip down memory lane because we've all heard about AI. We're all getting really, really excited by AI. So you know what, let's do a bit of an ask the audience and make this interactive. I'm going to ask you a question and I'd like you to put up your hand and keep your hand in the air if the answer is yes to this question. Has your organization run or is your organization planning to run a Gen AI or an agentic AI proof of concept? Put your hands up. Okay, keep your hands up. I've done this skit for a couple of years now. It goes down really well. Okay, for those of you with your hands up, which is most of you, put your hand down if your organization has failed to productionize that proof of concept, or if you suspect that it's unlikely to go into production. Okay, that's a lot of hands that have just gone down, but I've got a few more questions around that. For those of you that are remaining with your hands up, put your hands down if you are unclear what the ROI is going to be for the use case that you're running, or what will the total cost of ownership, in other words, what is it going to cost you to scale out this proof of concept across the organization? If you're unclear, put your hand down. Okay, that was 3 questions and you all put your hands down, but Louise, we've got a winner over there. That gentleman there was the last one to put your hands down, so well done. You have won the prize. Your organization is the most mature among these peers with regards to running a Gen AI proof of concept, but unfortunately you all failed, but don't feel bad. 95% of organizations fail to productionize their Gen AI or agentic AI proof of concept. We've experienced this ourselves with some of the clients that we've worked with. And the reason being, believe it or not, it's not because of technology. Generally speaking, the AI does what it says on the box. The reason why the proof of concept has failed is for other reasons, and that's what we're going to explore. We're going to explore those other reasons. But before we do that, as I said, I'm going to take you down a trip down memory lane. Because as an industry, we have a habit of reinventing things and calling them new. But AI has been around for a really, really long time. And it's quite important to demystify what artificial intelligence is, because I hate to break it to you, but your trusty chatbot that you use in your pocket that is probably controlling your life right now, that probably isn't all there is to AI. It's a lot broader than that. In fact, AI began in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, and we call that the statistical dawn. It's no coincidence that's when computing became mainstream or began through. And back in the 50s and 60s, we used things called statistics and analytics, like linear regression, and that allowed us to take large, complex data and compute it and process it and calculate things, calculate risk, calculate the likelihood of an event occurring. Today, we call it advanced analytics, and it's the exact same advanced analytics we had all the way back in the 50s. And then if you fast forward to the 80s and 90s, that was the launch of what we call things called expert systems. So these were large monolithic applications that were rules-based. They had a bunch of ifs and a bunch of thens. And these systems dictated how an organization performs a function. How do you do home loan origination in a financial services institution? How do you do agricultural management and harvesting? That was called AI back then in the 80s and 90s. And if you fast forward to the 2000s and the 2010s, that was the launch of big data, thanks to the cloud and the internet. That's when organizations realized that data is valuable, and they started putting processes in place to centralize that data to run some type of analytics that was invented in the 50s and 60s. So you had things called data lakes as an example, working with your data warehouses. In 2025, that's now called a lake house, very original, essentially does the same thing, just a hell of a lot smarter. And that gets us to the 2020s, and that is the launch of Gen AI and agentic capability, which basically means that now we understand language. I think the reason why this has become so popular in this point in time, even though we have had artificial intelligence for close to 70 years, for me is quite simple. For the last 70 years, the only people that could interact with artificial intelligence are people that understood programming languages like R and Python. So to use AI, you needed to know R, you needed to know Python, you needed to be a developer or a data engineer. Fast forward to 2022, when large language models launched, language was the programming language. English became the programming language. And suddenly for the rest of the world, these technologies have become accessible. And as a result of that, the popularity has skyrocketed. It's not necessarily that it replaces what has existed before, it's just made it accessible. So it's really important to remember that all of the tools we have used for the last couple of decades are just as relevant today. Everyone asks me what's going to happen in the future. Who knows? All we know is it's going to be more automated and it's going to be more embedded. But the real thing I'd like to talk to you all about today, and as you can see my chef's apron and I've got Chef Lyncoln over there, is I'd like to talk to you about a salad. So bear with me, this is a really, really quirky analogy. But imagine that we are a food manufacturing organization. So we're in the business of producing fresh packaged food items that we distribute and sell nationally. And our marketing department has this brilliant idea. They've done some research and they've realized that packaged salad is the next big thing. It's a multi-billion-dollar opportunity that we want to get into. So they assemble the best possible chefs that they have. They go into the lab and they work tirelessly to create the best salad you've ever tasted. Just slice the tomatoes just right, the right amount of cucumbers, perfect dressing. They get some potential consumers in to do a taste test, and basically this is the best salad anyone has ever tasted. It is going to be the most incredible product launch ever. So what happens? The business takes the salad and they go to the organization and they said, well, we made a salad, let's rock. So what does the business say? The business said, okay, we're assuming you've engaged with local farmers and local suppliers and you've got a production schedule to provide you the fresh produce 365 days a year. We're assuming you've got a logistics plan around getting that fresh produce into the plant. And we're assuming we have created a plant that has the capacity and the skills to produce the salad that you have put together. And we're assuming you've got a cold chain that has been set up to then distribute these salads to the retailers so that they can be put on the shelves. No, we just made a salad. Now, that would be a Dilbert cartoon. It would be absolutely preposterous to think that a food manufacturing organization that, quite frankly, is a business that has the ability to buy produce at a low cost, convert that produce into a product and distribute the product. That's the business an organization like that would be in. The actual making a sandwich or making a salad is trivial, but that's what you're all doing with your proof of concepts. You're making salads. You're tinkering around with a widget, with a technology, and you're forgetting about the infrastructure within the organization that you need in order to productionize the salad. And that's the food for thought in your organization. Use the language of, are we making a salad or are we building a supply chain around it? The other question I get asked all the time is, will AI replace my job or will AI replace humanity? I'll leave you with this thought exercise, and you're all mostly here because you're infrastructure practitioners. The average human processes 10 million bits per second. So if you extrapolate all of our senses, sight, sound, touch, it's about 10 million bits per second. If you run that over 4 years, which is basically one human child in 4 years' time, and you can work this out yourself, would process 143 terabytes of data. 143 terabytes of data is larger than the largest large language model. In fact, it's larger than all large language models combined. They're typically sized in gigabytes, not in terabytes. So a single human child consuming 20 watts of power in 4 years' time will ingest more data than all of the large language models on the planet. I think we're going to be okay. We just need to be creative and understand how to use these tools, but I'm hedging that we're likely to win this. Then we get to what are some of the typical challenges that organizations have with regards to leveraging these technologies. And the number one is that lack of strategy. Many organizations simply do not have a business strategy that aligns to how they utilize AI. They're jumping in and they're calling it an AI-first strategy. If you have an AI-first strategy, you don't have a strategy. Because your strategy needs to understand what is the business you want to go after, what is the operating model you want to drive, what is the efficiencies you're trying to gain, and maybe AI will be the solution to it, maybe infrastructure will be the solution to it, maybe training will be the solution to it, but you've got to lead with that strategy, which gets us to the second issue, and that is time to value. If all you're doing is going after cost, and you're not going after value generation, in other words, doing something better, more efficiently, more securely, that's going to be a struggle. The third one is technical debt. I can assure you within your organizations, across your infrastructure and across your applications, unless you uplift that technical debt and you modernize the environment, your ability to drive AI workloads is going to be extremely limited, and Lincoln's going to touch on that in a minute. And then security and responsibility, as well as having too much choice. There's hundreds of large language models, hundreds of deployment tools. The average organization will do it once or twice. The average services organization will do it hundreds of times globally. Hedge your bets in terms of who can achieve it. And then the final thought before I hand over to Chef Lincoln is organizational readiness. Take a self-driving car. You can go to Austin, Texas today, and you can go into a Waymo taxi and it'll take you from point A to point B, fully autonomously. Take the exact same taxi and drop it in Melbourne. Same sensors, same hardware, same devices, exactly the same car, and it won't work. Why won't it work? Because in Austin, they changed their environment, they changed the regulation, they changed the signage, they changed the infrastructure. In other words, it uplifted its maturity so that it can consume the technology. In the city of Melbourne, we cannot do that. It's not a technology issue, it's a maturity issue. So another food for thought is when you're evaluating technology, look in the mirror because you're actually evaluating your own organization. So Chef Lincoln over there is going to cover us through and tell us how we do that.
Thank you, Sous Chef Tal.
I'm the sous chef.
Very good. Now, I also have a Cisco headset to give away. I'll do it towards the end to see who was listening and participating, etc. So first person to jump up with the correct answer at the end wins that, just so you know the decision criteria on that. I'll press the next button. So you heard the big picture and the salad and AI, but I'm going to shift gears into, well, the so what, and how can you make that real for you from a networking perspective? What a networking consideration as an key ingredient in the AI salad, as was covered today as well in the keynote when we talked about that there. Just a brief overview. If you're not aware what NTT DATA from a networking perspective does as a system integrator, as a very value-centric, reliable procurement source, and as a managed service provider as well. We do everything in networking, period, and we're famous for that, for networking services, everything from the LAN to the SD-WAN or the WAN edge and data center and cloud networking. And the last one actually is where the most action is for networking in an AI context. So what we do there in an AI context and across the board is a range of services, consulting. You want to do something around AI, we can consult on that, design and implementation services, multi-vendor, Cisco-centric, also maintenance and support, and managed services and outsourcing if you don't want to manage your network infrastructure yourself. Being a global system integrator and a global company, we cater for everything from the big global multinational down to the single country Australia-based or Melbourne-based organization, and we have a very strong carriage business as well, mainly for global organizations. So AI and secure networking considerations for AI infrastructure. These are some of the logos and companies that have already taken the leap forward in investing at the network layer in an AI context. Many organizations, including Ford, Takeda in Japan, Panasonic, and Heineken globally. So what is it? Like you're asking, well, what is there in networking as an ingredient in the AI salad or the AI pizza, whatever you want to consider that? So what in networking? There's two areas. There's networking for AI, and then there's AI that's embedded in network management platforms. That's already there. So I'll just cover those two briefly. Let's start with the first one. Networking for AI. There's plain old networking, Ethernet. Does it cut the mustard as far as AI workloads? And the answer is really no, because AI workloads demand not just higher throughput, higher performance, but they need a whole new next generation data center networking approach. Faster is, of course, there, 400 gigabit, 800 gigabit capability, which is probably not in your data center networking estate today. It's not in the optics level. It needs ultra low latency jitter, or jitter on the latency, and it's very, very schedule sensitive. What gets finished first, what gets finished last. And then security and isolation. We heard it today at the keynote as well, in the plenary section, about the advent of this concept called the DPU, the data processing unit, and that is to bring security features right there at the switching level to then take away cycles that are being robbed away from the GPU. So the DPU, I've said it a couple of times, DPU. the data processing unit. So what? That's the technology. We're in the business of services. So NTT Data is here to work with you to design, build, support that private AI network fabric. Just a quick show of hands, that is anyone actually in a proof of concept phase to build a private AI infrastructure pods at all? If you are you building something? Yep, one. You two, or you were just scratching your head? All right. So yeah, so building private AI workloads is becoming a reality. We have customers now building AI workloads, and that's not repurposing server and storage that you already have to do AI stuff. It's actually net new investment, which is good for the industry. And then the second part is AI embedded in network management. In tools like Cisco's Catalyst Center, Meraki Dashboard, I think you saw a demo this morning in the keynote as well, and I'll flick through that demo also. These are AI assistants that are so contextually aware now that can make the life of an IT generalist a lot easier. And it can offload your network specialists from doing some tasks that you can offload to the generalist. So adopting these platforms can really help you take advantage of the AI that's already embedded in the network. So we have some adoption services to make use of these. A lot of the times, software entitlements that you already have that are sitting there wasting, sitting on the floor, sitting on the shelf, not being used. So in and all that, in our services capabilities up and down the Cisco stack from a networking side, smart switches with that embedded DPU capability in the data center side, networking, secure routers with quantum decryption resistance. Has anyone ever heard of post-quantum cryptography? Show of hands, yeah. Right, so quantum mechanics and quantum computing is going to be eventually in the next decade, or whenever it eventuates, one of the biggest revolutionary steps in computing ever. And there's two types of people, right? If you watch Austin Powers, those that use technology for good and then for evil. So usually the evil starts first and then the good catches up. So quantum computing presents a huge threat to traditional cryptography, that it would decrypt that in a matter of hours or days versus what a traditional computer, even the most powerful traditional computer, would take years to do. So we have to prepare for that now, and Cisco's G2 routers, so anyone in the whole SD-WAN routing refresh, that point in time needs to consider this now and getting ready for that now. And Cisco is the only routing platform vendor in the world today that has post-quantum resistant baked into the routers with the Cisco Catalyst 8K G2 routers. And we can make that real for you. And there's a lot of other capabilities as well in terms of Wi-Fi gateway. Wi-Fi 7 is just not Wi-Fi 6 bit faster. It's a lot more than that. A lot of machine learning AI capabilities to improve the performance of that, both in the user perspective and in industrial setting as well. And then OT, talking about industrial, from an OT sense, we have the capability there to, in an OT environment, industrial environment, if any of you operate in airports, warehouses, etc., where you need ruggedized equipment, we've got services around that. So come and talk to us at the stand there about what we can do there. And I talked about adoption services and the Catalyst Center. There's a demo going here. It's a little bit hard to follow and it's quick like this. But here's a capability in the Cisco Catalyst Center, which if you have that, is usually sitting there not being used. We can help you adopt that and take advantage of the capability that's in there from an AI perspective as well. The use case you saw here, it's hard to follow, I can't really rewind it, is that a natural conversational experience of an IT generalist deploying an entire new switch stack in an environment without really knowing much about programming switches. So I understand there's change control and change approval. We're probably a little bit ahead of ourselves, but that capability is there to rethink change management, rethink deployment with now AI versus doing it traditionally with preparing a text file full of configuration and pushing it out and testing it, et cetera, et cetera. Use AI to make that process a bit more efficient. So key takeaways, I'm almost up on time. There's AI embedded in platforms that you already own, you're already paying for, that's often sitting there wasted. NTT will help you adopt that, make the most of it, increase your productivity, help you reduce your mean time to resolution, root cause analysis, and all those other beautiful terms that go along with that. Refreshing and upgrading to AI-ready networking. When I talk about post-quantum, getting ready for it now, not waiting till it's a real threat. Right? There's organizations with real working quantum computers already today, right? So it's not science fiction. It's actually reality. So not waiting till you get your last state of support notice from Cisco about your router in 5 years' time, but you could do something about getting prepared for that today, early, and getting ready, not just because you have to, because you want to, because there's other considerations there. And then AI assessments across the business, not just from a networking perspective that Sous Chef Tal talked about. In the data and AI capability part of our business, we do have AI assessments, not just from an infrastructure side, but also from the design and of the data side as well, business casing, deployment, and support. And that's us done. Thank you very much for your time.